Hi, Lubabalo.
Hello, Chairperson.
How are you?
I'm okay, Chairperson, and yourself?
I'm okay.
Yeah. I nearly made a mistake. You saved me by opening the video because
Uh,
your gadget again is showing the numbers. So I'm just renaming you now.
hey, I don't know what's happening with this computer. It doesn't want to open automatically. I have to go to Zoom and what to the apps and put in the password and the ID. So I don't know what's happening with it.
Okay.
But as long as I'm here.
Yes, yes, that's the most important part. Yes.
By the way, who's coming is the chairperson of the board and the AG, Madulek.
In fact, the list that has been submitted does not have Deputy AG and AG.
Oh,
It's Miss Alice, who is the head of the portfolio, Mr. Tumisani Tredekulu, Yandasaki, and Mr. Hirohito Dikobo. So
oh,
maybe if the AG is going to be part of the delegation, it might be a surprise. The reason why I did not pay attention to it too much is because once we sent an invitation, the AG asked for your numbers, and I was told that she wants to have a word with you.
oh.
So right now I just assumed that it was in relation to both meetings. I'm not even sure whether she did phone you.
I haven't received a call from her. Maybe a missed call. I don't have her number.
Okay.
It's possible that she called, but
Okay. But
maybe.
it was long time ago.
Oh,
Yes, it was long time ago. It was not this week. Like, remember myself and Estelle, we always arrange these things a little bit early and give people
okay,
enough time to prepare. So it was like, yeah, long time around. It was still during recess when we sent out the invitations and we were organized.
okay, okay. Now,
And then
I
once
remember,
we,
I don't know if it was about this or something else because I remember Lizelle telling me that she wants to have a meeting with me.
that one is something else. With respect to these two meetings, I was
Mm,
advised that she wants to have a word with you. Um,
okay,
because I think I'm not sure whether it's this week or next week she will be out of the country.
okay.
So yeah, that was the reason. So that's why, like I'm saying, when I received this list of delegation, I did not pay attention because I just assumed that she
She
spoke
might
with
have
you.
spoken to me.
Yes, yes,
Okay, all
yes.
right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Thank you.
We don't have provinces, ne?
No,
We invite them.
we did not invite them formally, Chairperson, but when I sent the link yesterday, I also included the provinces.
Okay.
Yes. The reason being, the AGSA, they also do go around the country doing road shows, briefing provinces. So I was like, there's no need. It might happen that they've already been briefed or the briefings, the road shows are underway. So
Mm,
yes, but when I sent the link yesterday, I included the province.
okay. We'll see who's here will advise if
Yes,
they're, yeah.
they are here.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Estelle.
Good morning, Mr. Dikobo. You're welcome.
Good morning, Chairperson. I'm just going to request that you please give me hosting rights for me to share the presentation.
Okay. Lubabalo, can you do that, please? Lubabalo or Estelle? Can you give Mr. Dikobo the hosting rights?
Oh, yes. Yes, Chairperson. I do have that instruction, so I'm going to sort it out.
Okay.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. And I must just say that my principals will be joining in about 5 minutes.
And who are the principals?
It's going to be Miss Alice Miller, who is the head of portfolio, as well as Mr. Timisani Kibekulu,
Oh.
the business unit leader.
Oh, okay. You'll sort it out. I don't know who's going to lead the delegation. You'll sort it out. I think maybe you have planned already. I'll just give it over to you when the time is here.
No, thanks, Chairperson. It's going to be Miss Alice Miller who's going to be leading the delegation.
Miss Miller.
Miss Miller, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Chair.
Recording in progress.
Mr. Tikobo. Mr. Tikobo. Mr. Tikobo. ST, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Oh, okay. Okay,
I
thanks.
can hear you, Pablo.
Mr. Tikobo, can you please stop sharing your screen for now? Ne? You
All
will
right.
start sharing when the chairperson has invited you.
Noted, sir.
Thank you, Papa. Hello, chairperson.
Hello, Babalo. How many members are there? Oh, I see now you are 14.
Yeah, yes, chairperson. Chair for now, Miss Alice and Miss Alice Mula and Mr. Tumisan Kebekulu have joined.
Okay.
But from the members' side, you are still the only one. So I wanted to give you that update. If it is okay with you, kindly give me a few minutes. As soon as we have 4 or 5 members, I am going to draw you for your attention, or we have Honorable Okamfo now, and hand over to you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Apologies on that score. Honorable Auditor, you're welcome, and the team from AG was still checking on other members to join. As soon as they're available or they've joined, just give us a few minutes.
You are on mute now, Chairperson. You were still on the platform and then you disappeared.
I'm on mute. I'm still available.
Okay, okay.
Now I've opened my mic. Do we have enough members?
Yes, right now we have enough members. We have Honorable Raida, Honorable Okam, Honorable Mamarahane is on the platform now.
Okay.
I think you can start your meeting right now, Chairperson. Over to you, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Lubabalo. A very good morning to you, honorable members, and the team from the AG's office. You are all welcomed into this meeting. I'm not sure if we have members from the provinces. We note that the AG has been on the roadshow, has gone to the provinces to brief the provinces, but nevertheless, we invited the members of the provinces to can join us if they are available. You are all welcomed in this important meeting. We have only one item for today, which is the briefing by the Auditor-General of South Africa. And hopefully members will find it necessary because, it deals with the issues that are very core to us, the conditional grant expenditure that is meant to give the community members or the citizens of our country the services. So we'll hear from the AG how the municipalities fared on that note. Can I check Lubabalo or Estelle if we have apologies?
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, Chairperson, and honorable members who are present in the meeting. Yes, Chairperson, we have 3 apologies. We have an apology from Honorable Dutoit. He is out of the country in Germany with the WIPARI. We have an apology from Honorable Ngita. She has got another meeting which is clashing with this one. There's also an apology from Honorable Mamarahane. Even though she has joined, she indicated that she might have to leave, say, around 20 past if that situation still remains the same. Those are the few apologies, Chairperson, that we received. Thank you.
Okay. Nothing from Honorable Karim, because I just missed his call. I don't know if...
Apologies, Chairperson. Honorable Karim was struggling to join, but I've just accepted him right now as you were speaking about him. Yes.
Oh, okay. I think he experienced the same problem. Just saw his message. Welcome, Honorable Karim.
Yes, I really suffered with anxiety and distress and trauma because I knew you'd get mad at me. And Lubabalo, of course, if I'm 1 minute before a meeting, if I'm not there, he thinks I'm late. He marks me absent. So I was worried.
No, it doesn't happen like that. But we are happy
I'm teasing, yeah.
I know. I also struggled, and I can understand how frustrating it is. Honorable members, I see. Honorable Ryder also struggled because he has just named or declared today a link day. So I think what you're meaning is that you also struggled, but we are happy that we are on here, and the link will not disappoint us until we finish our meeting. Ms. Meller.
On a point of order. There is a point of order.
Yes.
It's not a laughing matter, Chairperson. But don't you think because Lubabalo is so strict and to the T and rigorous and bureaucratic, he should resign as a matter of honor that he caused this disruption for 2 minutes? Don't you think a person of his caliber should resign?
That's not an order.
I'm teasing. Okay.
He's also laughing. He knows that you're teasing. Honorable members, let's give this opportunity to Ms. Mela and her team from the AG's office to give us a presentation. Over to you, AG. And
Thank
if
you
there's
very
anyone
much.
from, sorry, if there is any member from the province, you're welcome, and also you are allowed to participate as a member. Thank you very much. Over to you, Ms. Mela.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and honorable members on the call. I will be sharing my presentation today with Dumisani Sebekulu. He's a seasoned executive also in the Auditor-General, and he's also the sector leader for the metros. And maybe I must also add, Dumisani is also the BU leader for the Gauteng province. But he's really close to the metro, so he can share from his heart what's happening in the metro space. Chair, we will be doing this presentation today in line with our constitutional mandate to strengthen democracy in the country. And I really trust that this presentation today is going to enable you as oversight with the important work that you are doing day to day, especially in the local government space, and how we need to monitor the spending and what's happening with every rand spent in that space. We'll see if you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Chair, maybe before I get to the outcomes, I think there's just a few comments that I would like to make. The first one being that local government faces really serious challenges, and especially to gain the trust again of citizens, because they've been deprived of basic services for a number of years, whether it's water, sanitation, wastewater treatment works that's problematic, that was in the news lately, the condition of roads. So there's been a characteristic that's been developed over a number of years of local government being prone to accountability and service delivery failures, poor governance, capacity issues, as well as instability. Now, the outcomes I'm going to talk to is for the year ending 21-22, so it's a year ago. It's last year's audit outcomes. We've just started the audit cycle for this year. And when the AG ended of the year before the one I'm reporting to you now, it was a call to new councils to come, when they come in, to really pay attention to the tone at local government institutions, to say, and she called it, she would like councils to provide courageous, ethical, accountable and citizen-centric leadership. That was really a call. And as we now look at the outcomes, this is the first year of the new administration, and councils still need to attend to this. I think that context is very important. When we then look at the outcomes, you will note that we'll see the next slide, please. When we then look at the outcomes, the picture hasn't changed much. There's a lot of stagnation in audit outcomes. But let me start off with some of the good news. So at the bottom of the slide, we talk about the submission of financial statements that improved from 81 to 91%. Now, this is significant. In the previous year, there was close to 20% of local government did not submit their financial statements on time. And last year, that percentage increased significantly. And it's something that we would like to see to continue. This year, it was also about 90%. It's good if we can sustain that 90% submission rate. The other good news is that there is still pockets of excellence in local government that we cannot move away from. And those are mainly in the clean audit space. Maybe just to add again, just for clarity, that we don't say clean audit is good service delivery. What we do say is that they get the basics right. Financial statements, no audit query on financial statements. No non-compliance was noted during our audit process. And when we then look at the performance information of the municipality, we assess that information to be reliable, it's complete, it's accurate. So it whether good or bad, the services that were delivered can be relied on, or what's been reported can be relied on, that those services have been performed. And that's a good basis. Actually, we're now calling it doing the basics right. And that's really what we want to see more and more in local government. So we want to give acknowledgement to the auditees that have either achieved or retained their clean audits in that space. What we've also noted in the local government space is a tremendous support from the provincial government, whether it's by the Premier, by the two MECs, either for local government or COCTA. There was really a lot of intervention, a lot of closeness to the process that we haven't seen before. And we also would like to acknowledge that. By the time we finalized this audit for reporting purposes, we had 16 outstanding audits. There were 3 financial statements that were not submitted. And that backlog still exists. 2 in the Free State, Kopanong and Masilonyana, and Ditsobolo in the Northwest. And then of the late submissions, the 12, we finalized them all. Of the 12, 7 had again disclaimed outcomes. Now, this is important that I note this, because if you look at the reduction in disclaimed municipalities, you really want to get excited about the 9 that reduced. But unfortunately, there's another 7 that when we finalized them was still disclaimed. So there is improvement of 2, and we are also grateful for that improvement. The other area I want to highlight on this slide is the adverse audit findings. There's 6 municipalities that's in that space, but 4 of them have moved into the space the last year or so. But there's 2, and I think it's important that we mention this. Imakazeni in Mpumalanga, as well as Ngaka Modiri Mulema in the Northwest municipality, Northwest province. Those 2 have been in that space for more than 4 years. So again, together with disclaimers, the auditees in the adverse space also needs attention. And if this is the one area that we would really like oversight to assist, it's in the area of disclaimed and adverse audit findings. Through our different reports, we have year on year demonstrated that the municipality that stays in the disclaimed space actually causing harm to the public, because they cannot manage with their finances, and as a result, there's also challenges with their service delivery. There's a direct correlation between these 2, and we've been demonstrating that in a lot of detail also in our general reports. When I then look at the provinces, on the next slide, we just a few comments about what does the provincial outcomes look like. Firstly, significant improvement in KZN and Eastern Cape, the 2 provinces that really improved this year. We also saw a regression in Gauteng as well as in Western Cape. And these improvements and regressions is in line with what we also see in the MFMA space. So when we look at national provincial government, we also see the same two provinces improving and the same two provinces regressing. And it therefore talks about a systematic challenge that needs to be addressed. I also want to mention that Western Cape is still the province with the highest number of clean audit. But then also Free State Northwest is the two provinces that doesn't have clean audits. And again, that's the hard work that they now need to attend to address the basics in that province. Also, we've noted Northwest being the province with the highest number of disclaimed municipalities. And that's been the case also for a number of years. Chair, when I go to the next slide, it talks about the accountability ecosystem. This one is we've headed it for the metros, but it's really for all the cycles and for any whether it's national, provincial, local government, this is an accountability ecosystem that we use for all these engagements. Before I go into the detail, I just want to land a few key messages. One is that this accountability ecosystem starts with the official and the senior managers. It then includes the different role players, the accounting officer, which is your municipal manager or your city manager, the internal audit committee that must support them, the mayor, as well as then the mayoral councils, of the municipal councils, the impacts that's legislated to be there, as well as then provincial oversight. And we talk about oversight as well as the coordinating ministries, and then the provincial leadership. We also have active citizenry in this space. We last week had a Metro Day, and we listened to this civil society organizations and the challenges they experience and has elevated to us as well. That's happening in the metro space. And then we are part of this ecosystem and our role is really to say, how do we influence the different players to go beyond just what they are legislatively mandated, but to encourage a moral obligation to intervene and make sure that things gets addressed as it gets elevated by the different role players, whether it's external audit or internal audit or the audit committee. It's important that there's a responsiveness that starts to evolve when we talk about the accountability ecosystem. When we then look at this accountability ecosystem, just a few matters that I think it's important is that everybody has a role to play. As I said, whether it's legislated or a moral responsibility, every single role player has a role to play. And failure by any part of a role player in this accountability ecosystem adversely affects the other role players. So what this means is that when we now, let me use a good example in the disclaimers, when we now have these 20 odd disclaimers, it means the whole accountability ecosystem failed. It really means that everybody failed because we were not able to address where municipalities have been in the disclaimer space for a number of years. And this is where it becomes so important that those auditees where there is really harm being demonstrated as a result of this continuous poor audit outcomes needs to be brought closer to oversight to the troikas in the provinces, meaning the Department of COPTA, Treasury, and the Premier's office, to see how and when intervention should be channeled towards these municipalities. And then lastly, maybe also just to indicate that in the metro space, we've also seen challenges with this accountability ecosystem, and I want to just highlight 2 or 3 for you. So if we look at internal audit units, now taking into cognizance that these metros are in the big cities in our country, and that it should be in the resource hub where they have access to resources. So if you still have internal audit units that are undercapacitated or doesn't have the required skill, it raises questions. Or where you have an audit committee that doesn't approve the internal audit plan, becomes a topic for conversation, because we don't expect those failures, not at a metro level. Where senior managers fail is a classical example where one, is the quality of financial statements are poor, or 2, where they then make excessive use of consultants. And the question is why? When they are actually located in a center where they theoretically should have access to resources and skills. And these are the questions that confront us as we all need to make plans to see how do we intervene in local government, and how do we get local government to stand up again and service the communities that they were intended to do. At this point, Chair, I'm going to hand over to Dumisani to take us through the detail of the metros. Thank you, Dumisani.
Thank you so much, Alice. Thank you so much, Chairperson. Greetings to yourself as well as the honorable members. Chairperson, as Alice did introduce me earlier on, my name is Dumisani Cebekulu, and my role within the audit office is that one of being the business unit leader in the Gauteng province. Chairperson, to also improve the connectivity from my side, I would request that from time to time I do switch off the video, because I see the connectivity from my side is a bit unstable. So, Chairperson and members, if you can move to slide number 6, Vusi. The story of the metros really needs to begin with a slide like this. This particular slide helps to position and contextualize the role of the metros in the local government space. Alice did articulate earlier on that metros are very, very, very critical in the context of a local government. And I think a graphical depiction like this does properly position the role of the metros in the local government. So, Chairperson, I will then go through a couple of statistics which we've looked at from our side as the audit office. So if you look at the 3 key areas that are prevalent in the metro space, the number of households, the population that the metros actually serve, as well as the budgets, you will see that starting with the city of Joburg, the total population or number of households, I will quickly illustrate or demonstrate what is our understanding and our definition behind that particular figure. So, city of Joburg serves about 2 billion households. And then in terms of the budget itself, it's about 79 billion. If one were to cast your eye towards the right, city of Tshwane, city of Tshwane has about 43 billion worth of budget, and the households about 1.2 billion. On the far right, city of Ekurhuleni, 48 billion, and households about 1.4 billion. Moving towards the coast in eThekwini, KwaZulu-Natal, eThekwini Metro has about 51 billion, servicing about 1.2 households. Buffalo City Metro, 10 billion, 264 households. City of Cape Town, 53 billion, and households about 1.3 billion. Nelson Mandela, 15 billion, households of about 392. Chairperson and honorable members, Why I'm spending a bit of time on this one, as I said, is to properly appreciate the economic importance of the metros, and of course the various opportunities that the metros have to make a positive impact in the lives of the citizens, as I demonstrated in terms of the number of households that they service, as well as the population in the metros. And our understanding is that metros play a very significant role in the local government sphere for a multitude of reasons. This includes the metro's strategic location across the countries, various economic hubs, the vast number of people in various cities, as I demonstrated earlier on, and those people who ultimately rely on these metros, as well as the corresponding substantial budgets that are entrusted that the metros are entrusted with for the purpose of service delivery. Before I step off this particular one, let me also talk a little bit about some of the entities, or rather some of the metros do have a number of entities, for example, the city of Joburg. And these entities are big in terms of the budgets. For example, the City Power Joburg has about 20 billion worth of budget. Johannesburg Water, about 14 billion. Pikita, about 3.6 billion. And Johannesburg Roads Agency, about 2.5 billion. The City of Joburg entities combined actually account for about 41 billion. So included in the 79 billion for City of Joburg will be about 41 billion that is sitting in the metro's entities. Mangaung also has a significant entity called Sentlek, that is about 3 billion. So again, if you look at Mangaung and the budget for Mangaung, the 5.4 billion, then have to be looked in the context of the fact that there's also Sentlek, which is a municipal entity. So, Chair, earlier on I did say I will indicate where we're getting these numbers from and what is our understanding insofar as the households definition is concerned. So we are saying from our side, households means individuals living together under the same roof or yard who share resources. And of course, this number is then based on the National Treasury 21-22 local government equitable share formula, which we believe would have been coming through from 26 states SA community survey data. So that's the comment I wanted to make in terms of where we are pulling the number of households information from. You can move to the next one, Vusi. As Alice has explained earlier on, we were then requested to also zoom a little bit deeper insofar as what is the overall audit outcomes for the metros. You would see that in the year that we concluded last year, 21-22, we had about 2 metros that had clean opinions, that being City of Cape Town as well as City of Ekurhuleni, unqualified with findings, 3, which is Buffalo City, City of Joburg, as well as eThekwini, qualified with findings, Mangaung, as well as Nelson Mandela, and then adverse with findings, what City of Tshwane. Those graphical depictions that you see, the green and the yellow, and the direction in which they are facing, essentially indicate the comparison compared to last year. So if I were to use City of Tshwane as an example, it is downward facing. That indicates that there was a regression compared to 2021. If you look at Mangaung, it is down facing. That indicates that there was a regression for Mangaung into the qualified audit space from a more better audit outcome compared to the previous year. Where the arrows are facing towards the right, for example, City of Ekurhuleni, that will indicate that City of Ekurhuleni was clean in the previous year, and it also been clean in the current year. City of Joburg was unqualified with findings, and it also remained unqualified with findings. eThekwini, similar story, was unqualified and also remained unqualified with the current year. Typically, metros have got capacity and bigger budgets and can more easily attract suitable and skilled and competent professionals, and therefore the audit outcomes are expected to be much better than they are, and they should be setting an example to the municipalities. as Alice explained earlier on, the new administration was in municipal leadership for parts of the 21-22 financial year, and inevitably there was instability during the handover process. And as the audit office, we have appreciated that fact. Yet it remains a concern to report the ongoing failures in accountability and performance at the different metros. We appreciate that dealing with some of the challenges in local government space is not an easy task. And however, we do remain encouraged by the strides that have been made to improve the service delivery, particularly at the two metros, being City of Cape Town as well as City of Ekurhuleni. Just to spend a bit of time on the City of Cape Town and also to appreciate what would have contributed towards the improvement into the clean audit space. City of Cape Town, the main contributor was the improvement that stems from the leadership of that particular municipality that have taken a very decisive posture in terms of the zero tolerance approach to non-compliance with laws and regulations, with emphasis placed on dealing with issues where there have been irregular expenditure. So a very strong tone at the top that drives a very right posture when it comes to consequence management. And of course, there was also a credible action plan, which was very proactive in dealing with some of the internal control issues that would have been identified by the HGSA in the prior years. We also need to reflect on the City of Ekurhuleni, because the City of Ekurhuleni has been clean for a number of years, and this was as a result of the continued good financial disciplines and sound governance practices, which ultimately has also had a positive impact on the service delivery. The City of Ekurhuleni is characterized by good governance, effective internal control processes, stability in key management positions. And I want to emphasize this point because although there has been changes at the council level, however, as a result of the fact that key positions have been stable for a number of years, there has been a firming up and the due attendance to the system of internal control. We found the city not regressing, although there has been changes at the council level. As indicated earlier on, Buffalo City improved from qualified to unqualified audit opinion with findings. However, this improvement might not be sustainable going forward. That is for the Buffalo City Metro, because the Metro itself continued to rely a lot on the audit process to identify misstatements in the financial statements rather than improving their own internal control processes or disciplines. As I explained earlier on, the City of Tshwane regressed to an adverse opinion, and the root cause was instabilities in leadership, which had a negative impact in the environment, as well as the capacities insofar as the critical areas such as the finance, supply chain management units, as well as the performance information units, as well as a continuing culture of non-compliance with laws and regulations and non-adherence to policies, processes, as well as inadequate performance. This was then further worsened by the lack of adequate consequences for poor performance and transgressions. I want to quickly deal with Mangaung. The regression at Mangaung was due to management failure to provide sufficient supporting documentation during the audit process and failure to implement audit action plan to address internal control deficiencies. A huge concern for the Metro is the leadership instability, which then has led to instabilities at council level. In fact, this particular Metro has had about 5 acting accounting officers, city managers in the past 12 months. When we audited, as Alice indicated earlier on, these are the results for the year that ended last year, 30 June 2022. So at that point in time, this particular municipality had about 5 acting city managers. Of course, we understand that National Department of COGTA has intervened, which then resulted in the city manager at that point in time being the person that has been seconded by National Department of COGTA. The Metro was previously under administration in January 2020 However, there wasn't a lot of improvements insofar as the environment is concerned, which is why we are reflecting on a regression insofar as the municipality is concerned. I will quickly, in the context of the city of Joburg, it's not included in the slides, Honorable Chair, just reflect on the state of some of their big municipal entities as indicated earlier on. City Power has been unqualified for a number of years. Johannesburg Water has been unqualified for a number of years. Johannesburg City Parks has been unqualified for a number of years. Johannesburg Development Agency also unqualified. Roads Agency also unqualified. Pick It Up also unqualified. However, we saw one municipal entity in the city of Joburg being Johannesburg Social Housing Company regressing to a qualified audit space. Let me also quickly touch on the Mangaung entity, which is Sentlek. We saw that Sentlek obtained an unqualified audit opinion in the past year. So what is the overall message insofar as the municipal entities, Chairperson? The overall message is that on an overall basis, the municipal entity audit outcomes are unqualified with findings. However, there is no municipal entity that received a clean audit opinion during 21-22. And this is because municipal entities, there is an appreciation that municipal entities, as indicated earlier on, perform a lot of municipal services on behalf of the metros and are responsible for a significant portion of the metro's expenditure. However, we have realized that when it comes to the audit outcomes, there is inadequate oversight and inadequate support coming from the parent municipalities insofar as moving these particular entities into the clean audit space. Hence, as I indicated earlier on, most of the municipalities, in fact, almost all of them, are sitting with unqualified with findings, opinions, and there is no municipal entity in the country that is currently receiving a clean audit opinion. We can move to the next one, Vusi. Chairperson, it's also important that as we tell our story, we also appreciate what is it that we are talking about when it comes to the financial reporting process value chain. We often focus on a number of basic controls. One of those would be the reviewing and the monitoring of compliance in the finance section, the in-year and year-end reporting processes, the daily and monthly recording controls, as well as the proper recording of information that pertains to the metros. We've seen that about 75% of the metros, that makes it about 7, did not review and monitor compliance. 87% did not have adequate systems insofar as the in-year and year-end reporting processes. And again, 75% struggled with the daily and monthly control processes as well as the proper recording. We have also seen an emerging trend insofar as the usage of the reporting consultants in the metro space. Earlier on, my colleague Alice did put the proper context that there is an expectation that the metros should be in a position to build their own system of internal control. There is an expectation that the metros should be in a position to attract the right skills into the environment because they can also compare with some of the role players in the employment market due to the fact that the salaries and the packages that normally gets to be offered in the metro space are very much competitive. It therefore becomes a challenge or a concern from our side when we look at the usage of the consultants in the metro space. I must also indicate, Chairperson, we are not saying consultants should not be utilized, but we are saying when consultants are being utilized, there needs to be an in-depth appreciation and understanding in terms of the value that the consultants are bringing on the table. There needs to be an in-depth and full appreciation in terms of the capacity gap that the consultants are playing. And of course, there needs to be a full appreciation in terms of how is the work of the consultants adding value in the environment? Are they adequately monitored? Are they getting the right sort of information to adequately and fully discharge their responsibility. So over the years, we have been reporting on the shortcomings and providing recommendations around this particular space. And of course, as indicating, we've been raising the issue around the usage of the consultants, and of course, the increasing amount that gets to be paid for consultants for financial reporting, which in the main has not necessarily led to the improvement in the status of key financial management controls, and thus ultimately affecting the financial reporting. So these two figures on the left actually are interlinked. So if the work of the consultants was yielding the requisite results, there shouldn't be a situation where the top block, apologies, on the left is the way that it's currently projected. The poor quality of financial statements submitting for audit does not bode well for the credibility of the municipalities' in-year financial reporting processes, as this essentially means that decisions, analysis, as well as the monitoring of key items or key matters, such as service delivery, could have been based on unreliable information. Hence, we continue to raise the message around it's not ideal that some of the metros are relying on the audit process to fix the financial statements, because during the in-year processes, there would have been a lot of decisions that would have been made as a result of the information, which the auditors would subsequently correct during the auditing process. And this ultimately will then have a negative impact on the communities. The poor financial management controls and the practice of those metros relying on the audit process, as I said, is unsustainable, and it results in the delays in finalizing the audit process. So from our side, as well as the audit office, we've been looking at this area very closely, because it does also contribute towards the delays in the finalization of the audit process. Despite the involvement of consultants, I'm talking to the block at the left, the bottom block, we have seen that at 3 metros, although the consultants were utilized, the auditors still found concerns or issues as a result emanating from the work that the consultants would have done. City of Tshwane, the consultants were utilized around the area of assets, and one of the elements of the items that would have led to the negative opinion of City of Tshwane was as a result of some of the asset management issues that were noted in the environment. They were also involved in a number of areas at Mangaung, and again, as we saw earlier on, we identified issues at Mangaung. Nelson Mandela, there were also challenges there, and we continue to raise issues at Nelson Mandela insofar as the qualification areas are concerned. Just to zoom a little bit deep in terms of the consultants and the amounts that were paid there, and here, Chairperson, I am only focusing on the amounts that were paid as a result of the consultants being involved in the financial reporting process. So in total, we've analyzed the figure to be 142 million, but I must also say the figure could actually be higher than that due to the fact that some of the metros were actually qualified. Buffalo City financial reporting consultants cost was about 14 million. And the reason for using the consultants at Buffalo City was the lack of skills. As I said earlier on, the key question that we then had to sit up straight and ask ourselves, were there misstatements in the work of consultants at Buffalo City? Yes, there were misstatements. And the reason for misstatements was that the work of consultants was not adequately reviewed. As I indicated earlier on, we are not saying consultants should not be brought into the environment, but when they are being brought into the environment, they need to be adequately reviewed and adequately monitored in terms of the overall contracts that the consultants would have signed with the municipality. City of Tshwane, financial reporting costs of about 114 million. Reason for using consultants, the municipality indicated that it was a lack of skills, technical skills. Again, the question that we asked ourselves, were there misstatements in the work that the consultants did at City of Tshwane? Yes, there were. And the reason for the misstatements was that the consultants did not deliver on the work that they've done. Mangaung, financial reporting consultants, about 4.6 million. Again, at Mangaung, we saw that there were misstatements in the work that the consultants would have touched. So the lending message, Chairperson, is that when consultants are being brought into the environment, they need to be a requisite translation into the improvement of the internal controls. And the figures that I was just reflecting on now are huge figures. And of course, our message and our view is that if that area can be attended to, the municipalities can actually improve in tightening the internal control systems. As indicated earlier on, generally the metros don't struggle to attract the right skills into the environment, and therefore it is critical that this area gets to be looked at very deeply in terms of what does it mean in terms of building the capacity for the different metros. Just quickly, Chairperson, just to indicate that using our amended powers, the material irregularity processes, we've been looking at some of the work, these expenditures that the consultants have, or rather the municipalities have incurred in the area of consultants. And for example, let's say of Tshwane, we have then subsequently raised what we call a material irregularity regarding some of the work that has been done in the consulting space, so that we can get the requisite return on investment on the work that the consultants would have brought into the environment. Just to reflect briefly on some of the findings in the environment, I think I did speak to the issue of Buffalo City and Mangaung. I think I also reflected very deeply around the issue of City of Tshwane. So let me leave this particular slide here, Chairperson, just to indicate that this is an area that we continue to flag from our side. Please move to the next one. Having reflected on what makes up a good system of internal control environment and fully appreciating what is it that we believe needs to be done insofar as tightening up of the internal control environment and making sure that if there is reliance on external parties, there is a requisite return on investment. We then reflected deeply in terms of the financial management weaknesses or the pressure insofar as the metro finances are concerned. As the audit office, there was a realization that the financial situation of the metros is concerning. There is pressure on the financial fiscus of the municipalities. We then dissected this analysis further in terms of what are some of the indicators that we need to look at, and what are some of the indicators that we wanted to share with the committee, the select committee, insofar as the financial health of the metros are concerned. We realized that insofar as the budgets are concerned, there is unauthorized expenditure of about 3.16 billion due to overspending by 4 metros. Those metros, just quickly, Chairperson, will be Buffalo City, City of Joburg, as well as Tshwane and Mangaung. So Buffalo City, City of Joburg, Tshwane and Mangaung. So they would have contributed towards that particular overspending by the metros. We also realized that there is insufficient budgeting for capital expenditure and maintenance for 4 metros. In fact, 4 metros budgeted for less than 10% of capital, less than 10% of their budget on capital expenditure. And again, we then looked at the budgets or the actual expenditure around the maintenance, and we realized that on average, only 4% of metros spend more than 10% on repairs and maintenance. In fact, only 2 metros are within the treasury allocated norm, and I think that is City of Cape Town as well as City of Ethekwini. Therefore, from our side, we then analyzed and realized that insofar as the metros are concerned, this situation insofar as the financial fiscal discipline does remain a concern. As indicated earlier on, City of Tshwane as well as Mangaung continue to have big challenges insofar as unauthorized expenditure is concerned. Seats of Tshwane approved an unfunded budget, which essentially means that while the approved budget shows that there is enough revenue to fund its spending for the year, the revenue projections were overstated, the revenue subsequently not collected. As a result, the metros cannot pay their creditors because they spend more money than they can generate, even though the amount owed to these municipalities is increasing while the amount they collect is decreasing. So let me just position properly. So we're saying even though the amount owed to these municipalities is increasing, the amount that they collect is decreasing. So the top line is increasing, but when it comes to the collection patterns, we have been seeing a decreasing trend. However, these municipalities continue to spend based on the initial revenue projections. So although there is a pressure in terms of the collections, the expenditure by the municipalities continue to follow the originally approved budgets. That then lands the different municipalities in different challenges insofar as the budgeting processes are concerned. Seats of Tshwane, as well as Mangaung, continue to be in a concerning financial position. And these two municipalities or metros have been such for a number of years. Tshwane for about 2 years, and Mangaung longer than 5 years in terms of the overall financial position vulnerability. Metro's budgets obviously do make provision for items that do not involve actual cash flow inflow. These non-cash items include accounting entries, such as the reducing the value of which assets are reflected in the financial statements. Those will be the impairments, provision for other type of potential financial losses. And Chairperson, it just indicates this would not be actual expenditure, but rather an accounting requirement that lets the municipalities assess the true value of their assets in terms of the value that the assets are currently reflected on the financial statements. And therefore, our key message is municipalities must continue to correctly budget for these items to show their true financial state and plan for the inevitable replacement of assets. The unauthorized expenditure related to non-cash items was actually caused by poor project or rather budget management. Chair, earlier on I reflected on the fact that there is insufficient budget for CAPEX at the metros. Just to go through a couple of specifics, we've realized that for Buffalo City, only 7% is allocated towards CAPEX. For City of Cape Town, it's about 11%, which is in the correct range, because our understanding is that when it comes to capital expenditure, the range should be at least between 10 and 20%. City of Joburg, about 13%. City of Tshwane, 7%. City of Ekurhuleni, about 7%. eThekwini, 9%. Mangaung, it's about 17%. I must also indicate, Chairperson, that in as much as Mangaung has budgeted about 17% for capital expenditure, that needs to also be properly understood in the context of the opinion that Mangaung is currently receiving. As indicated earlier on, Mangaung is currently sitting with a negative opinion. And lastly, Nelson Mandela has spent about 10% on capital expenditure. So the overall message insofar as capital expenditure is concerned is that there are metros that are budgeting at the right level insofar as capital expenditure is concerned, and this then talks to the future in terms of investing money on infrastructure going forward. However, we are also seeing that some of the metros are not spending at the requisite level, and those that are also spending at the requisite level, we are also seeing that there are challenges insofar as the credibility of the information is concerned. Having reflected on this, Chair, I think we then need to appreciate what is the impact, what are the root causes. I think at the root cause level, from our side, we are seeing that there is inadequate long-term planning insofar as the metros are concerned. We've seen that the economic downturn also affects the revenue collection, hence my emphasis on the unfunded budget and what it means to continue to spend, notwithstanding that the collection patterns are decreasing. We've also said there is lack of prudence in spending limited funds. That can be seen in unfair or non-competitive procurement practices that we see in the environment, poor payment practices, value for money not always received, and controls not implemented to ensure limited funds in a sense that they are being spent appropriately or the best value is being received. Of course, Chair, we then need to reflect on the impact. What does it mean to the life of the citizens on the ground? Poor budgeting, budgeted and managed finances directly affect the Metro's ability to deliver the promised services to communities. Lack of maintenance to aging infrastructure resulted in service delivery disruptions, such as water losses, because if you don't maintain the infrastructure on the ground, it does result to service delivery disruptions. Poor credit ratings lead to higher borrowing costs and further strain on the budgets for the municipalities, because ultimately, if the interest rates are high, as a result of the metros being highly geared or the financial situation of the metros not being at the right level, essentially it means one way or another, the citizens will have to bear the brunt of that, because ultimately for the metro's budgets to be fully funded, there needs to be an attendant to the top revenue line, and often that's where the service charges will often sit. Poor procurement practices resulting in money being lost due to higher practices and late payments to creditors, which then results in suppliers and contractors not delivering, and delays to project and services to communities. There is further interest or an analysis from our side that reveals that interest on late payments will then further place a strain on the funding and creating of a cycle, and rather really create or perpetuates the cycle of further late payments. So really we are saying insofar as the overall financial management of the metros, we are observing a concerning continuing trend insofar as this decreasing trend insofar as this area is concerned, that is underpinned by budget processes, financial performance issues, credit rating impact in the metros. We're reflecting on the root causes in the middle, and we are then closing off the message around what is the impact of some of the financial disciplines that seem to not be at the right level insofar as the metros are concerned. Just move to the next one. We are also reflecting on the performance and the planning in reporting processes of the different metros. We, from our side, have also appreciated that insofar as the performance reports are concerned, we need to also appreciate and understand what is it that the metros do to ensure that what they are budgeting for essentially talks to the needs of the citizens on the ground. So as the audit office, we've been observing the public participation processes that are happening in the different metros. And we saw that across all metros, there was a public participation process that was undertaken. However, the intended benefit was not always realized. We saw that at Nelson Mandela, Mangaung, as well as City of Tshwane, they included all the common indicators insofar as the minimum requirements in terms of their SPDIPs. However, some other metros did not fully indicate or rather include the minimum indicators as prescribed by Circular 88 from National Treasury. eThekwini and Nelson Mandela also set a target of 0 to comply with the requirements to include the common indicators. Therefore, we are saying from our side, it's good and well that there is a drive by the metros to include the common set of indicators in their SPDIPs. There is an appreciation that the metros do go out in the public participation process. However, we are still raising concerns insofar as how those public participation activities would have translated into the meaningful impact in terms of the life of the citizens, in a sense that what the citizens would have communicated, not only should it find its expression in the annual performance reports, in the annual performance plans of the municipalities, rather those indicators or targets should actually be delivered insofar as the annual performance reporting is concerned. Just a couple of specific indications, Chairperson. We've realized that at some of the municipalities, the achievement that was reported was not reliable. We saw that at the Buffalo City, City of Joburg, City of Tshwane, eThekwini, Mangaung, and Nelson Mandela. We also saw that in some instances, performance indicators were not useful, and that was at Buffalo City, City of Joburg, Mangaung, and Nelson Mandela. And then the challenges which were elevated, as I also touched on it a little bit earlier on, would be the challenges in implementing the common performance indicators due to lack of capacity and supporting systems within the metros. But of course, we need to appreciate, as I said earlier on, metros are actually well positioned to attend to the issues of capacity in the environment. Performance reporting not credible due to in-year monitoring controls and project management disciplines not being at the right place. This then dovetails into my earlier message in terms of the credibility of the in-year reporting processes as a result of this reliance on the audit process. Weaknesses raised previously were not addressed due to slow response by municipal leadership. I think this also encourages the overall message in instances where we've not seen the requisite movement in the right direction to say there continues to be an overall a slow response in terms of dealing with the internal control issues in the different metros. Please move to the next one. Chairperson, this then summarizes our message around the service delivery, as well as our overall observation insofar as the infrastructure in the metro space. The slide on the, or rather the block on the top left, talks to the achievement of targets for metros on selected programs. So as the audit office, we don't audit each and every program of the municipality, but those that we selected, we would have then made these particular observations. So for Mangaung, we saw that there was only 13% of achievement of the targets. At Buffalo City, 44%. At eThekwini, 46%. City of Tshwane, 49%. Nelson Mandela, 50%. City of Johannesburg, 69%. City of Ekurhuleni, 77%. And City of Cape Town, about 87%. Now, for City of Ekurhuleni and City of Cape Town, we want to also indicate that although all targets were not achieved, metros with the clean audit outcomes were able to report credibly to communities and oversight, and therefore enabling the right decision making. So the message is, in as much as Cape Town or Ekurhuleni did not fully achieve their targets, as a result of the credible information that exists in the metros, they were then positioned well enough to be in a position to adequately and transparently communicate with the citizens in terms of the information or the service delivery aspect. So that then is our key landing message insofar as the service delivery matter is concerned. We've also looked at a number of infrastructure projects because our understanding is from a lived realities or the social side of things insofar as the infrastructure being utilized to provide the service delivery to the citizens is concerned. It's important that we understand what is happening in the infrastructure space. We selected about 81 projects across all metros, and we saw that generally in the metro space, there is delays insofar as the projects are concerned. We've noted that in some metros, there is cost overruns insofar as the projects are concerned. We've also noted that in certain instances, infrastructure projects are of poor quality. And then, of course, from our side as the audit office, we'll continue to track this area very closely because our understanding, as indicated earlier on, is that this is an area that is very, very, very critical insofar as the service delivery is concerned. Usage of infrastructure grant, we've seen that the total grant income was about 11.8 billion, and 93% was actually spent. And of course, the highest underspending was in USDG, about 272 million, and PTNG, about 92 million. So making up the 93% actual expenditure would be some of the infrastructure projects that I was reflecting on. And as I said, the situation can actually be improved insofar as the infrastructure projects are concerned, having noted that there is also an appreciation that there is also further underspending in the infrastructure grants space. And there we are reflecting on some of the key grants that have been underspent, as indicated earlier on. Chair, our view is that when it comes to the infrastructure space, we also need to use our powers where necessary to then attend to the issue of infrastructure. In the current year, we've raised a number of material irregularities in the environment. That would be in a situation where in the ecosystem of the municipalities, findings would have been raised in the prior years or prior year. However, there has not been the requisite attendance to the issues on the ground such that the situation gets to be attended. We then raise the material irregularities. At City of Tshwane, there is a material irregularity that we raised insofar as the safeguarding of assets. We also raised the material irregularity insofar as a contractor that was paid for informal settlement where there was no full requisite or rather value in terms of the expenditure that was incurred on the ground. Chair, we've also been focusing a lot on the wastewater treatment works as well as the landfill sites in the different metros. In fact, at the City of Tshwane, we raised the material irregularity insofar as the Rooival wastewater treatment plant. At Mangaung, we raised the material irregularity insofar as the Botshabelo and stacked water wastewater treatment plants. There's been observation or rather findings insofar as lack of compliance with environmental management legislation at Buffalo City, Mangaung, as well as eThekwini. We've also observed that at some metros, there's been mismanagement at landfill sites at Mangaung, for example. That would then have resulted in the harm to the public. So, to then conclude on this particular slide, it's a slide that talks to the service delivery. It's a slide that demonstrates the full appreciation of how infrastructure is absolutely critical insofar as service delivery is concerned. It's a slide that then looks at how is the infrastructure actually funded. We've made an observation that the funds seem to be spent. However, insofar as the meaningful impact is concerned, there are challenges there. We're also reflecting on some of the funds that have been underspent. And then lastly, we are then closing off the conversation insofar as to the extent that there continues to be a persistent neglect on some of the issues that we've raised as the audit office. How do we then use our powers to then enforce the necessary compliance insofar as those matters are concerned? And we have looked at the wastewater treatment plants as well as the landfill sites and some infrastructure related material irregularities in the environment. Please move to the next one. This particular slide talks to the non-compliance with key legislation. Mainly, it will be the Municipal Finance Management Act, as well as the related SCM prescripts. We've seen that all the metros, with the exception of two, being City of Cape Town and the Ekurhuleni, do have material findings insofar as the non-compliance with the SCM broadly, or the non-compliance with some of the key legislation is concerned. And the areas that we continue to flag from our side will be unauthorized, irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure, procurement and contract management, consequence management, material misstatements in the financial statements submitted for audit. That also dovetails into my earlier message in terms of the quality of the financial statements that get to be submitted to audit process, strategic planning and performance management. That also talks to the issue of service delivery, as I indicated earlier on. So broadly, Chair, the areas of non-compliance do quickly find their expression in terms of the earlier messages that I was sharing earlier on. to say if you don't attend to the issues of consequence management, you're going to have high regular expenditure. If you don't attend to the issues of the disciplines in the environment, you're going to have financial statements being submitted to audits that have errors. If you don't attend to the issues of compliance insofar as the strategic planning and performance management, you're going to have issues insofar as service delivery matters are concerned. The slide on the right then is a summation in terms of the areas that we would have audited from our side. So I won't spend a lot of time. Really, the key message here is that non-compliance with legislation continues to be a challenge in the area, in the space, and these challenges will then find their expression in terms of the earlier messages that I would have shared earlier. Please move to the next slide. Honorable Chair, this then is the summation of the material irregularities in the metros space. I think in my presentation, I've also been indicating certain areas where we would have raised the material irregularities. This then is a slide that then summarizes the picture for the entire metro space. In total, we have raised 47 material irregularities in the metro space. This talks to all the 8 metros in the country, and the material financial losses that we are attending to insofar as the material irregularities are concerned is about 432 million. And this will talk to variety of issues: payment for goods and services not received, unfair procurement processes, value for money not received, which is why earlier on I would have elevated the issue of the consultants, because that was a clear case of value not being received, revenue not being billed or recovered, interest and penalties on late or non-payments, assets and investment processes at the end, or rather losses, which is why earlier on I reflected on some of the material irregularities that we would have seen as part of the asset management issues. Substantial harm to the general public. The slide that I just reflected on now, there's about 6 of those material irregularities. I did spend quite a bit of time in terms of those wastewater-related treatment material irregularities, as well as the landfill sites. So the numbers are broken down like that, Chair. So in total, there's about 47 that then talks to those different areas which I was reflecting on. So at the bottom of the slide would then be the different metros in terms of those material irregularities. I think Tshwane has about 12. City of Joburg has about, I'm just trying to check the color coding there. Chairperson, in summary, those will then be the breakdown in terms of where these material irregularities are sitting. I'm struggling to see the other ones because of the projection. I think there's 8 at City of Joburg. There's 5 at Buffalo City. There's 6 at Mangaung. All those ones will then make up the 47 that I'm talking about. Having reflected on the 47 as a snapshot, it's also critical that we then track and understand what has been the impact of these material irregularities since we started to implement the amended powers as the audit office. We've seen that 7 material irregularities would have been resolved. So what does this mean? It means as the audit office, we would have raised the material irregularity and the municipality would have attended to issues that we would have highlighted as the audit office. Those will be issues that cut across a number of key areas, be it issues of internal control, be it issues of consequence management, be it issues of attempting to recover some of the losses that would have been incurred. That will then land us in us resolving the particular MI. So we've resolved about 7 MIs. And I think this is a step in the right direction because it shows that the municipalities are also attending to this particular issue. 25 of the 47, we've seen that appropriate action is being taken by metros to resolve the MIs. Some of the MIs, Chair, will not just be resolved in a space of 6 months or a year. One needs to take a proper long-term view in terms of fully resolving the particular MI. So typically those will be the material irregularities in the space of infrastructure, will be material irregularities in the space of revenue. Just quickly, Chair, and then we've seen that on one, we've issued recommendations in the audit report, 3 remedial actions being taken, as well as one where we are still finalizing our process in terms of advising the different metros. Please move to the next one. This particular slide, Chair, then I would have covered it broadly in my input today. This is a reflection of what we have seen in the environment as a result of the MI process being undertaken by us as the audit office. So 91% of the issues that we would have raised would not have been dealt with up until the MIs were notified to the accounting officers. That then has translated to about 211 million that is in the process of being recovered, or some have been fully recovered. And the areas that have been attended to will be issues of internal control, as indicated earlier on, issues where disciplinary actions needed to be taken across the officials that would have caused some of the material irregularities. There's been instances where suspected fraud or criminal investigations are now being undertaken as a result of us raising these particular MIs. So the examples on the right, to give a balanced message, also does reflect on some of the positives that we've seen in the environment, as indicated earlier on. We are seeing the requisite movement insofar as the material irregularity process is concerned. So it's City of Cape Town. The accounting officer has filed about 3 million lawsuits or civil claims against contractors for plumbing and installing water management devices that were not included on the job cards, resulting in overpayments. That is an excellent example insofar as the city attending to that particular issue is concerned. So 3 million should be is in the pipeline of being recovered, I suspect, pending the finalization of that particular claim. City of Tshwane, I think it's also important that we appreciate what would have been done insofar as some of the material irregularities are concerned. We've seen that there is repairs and maintenance work that has started, that did start at the wastewater treatment plants. Insofar as that particular MI is concerned, there was an attending to that issue insofar as the water-related services are concerned. But of course, I think it's also important to appreciate the reality that this matter continues to be a key issue that the municipality needs to be seized with going forward insofar as the lived realities are concerned. Buffalo City, the metro initially did not calculate revenue for water services on a monthly basis. Again, this is a critical one in the context of the shrinking pairs insofar as the metros are concerned. As the audit office, we raised material irregularities to the extent of 9.6 million. As a result of the material irregularity, standard operating procedures were developed to guide the flow of information from the source to the financial system. This is a typical indication of the municipality that would have attended to the issue of the internal control environment as a result of the material irregularity. Again, City of Tshwane, quickly, there is a material irregularity that we raised around the informal training facility that was not constructed, yet money was paid, and then the city has started to take disciplinary actions against the implicated officials. And then lastly, salaries that were paid to employees that did not, where there was no requisite return on investment. And in that regard, the city has started a forensic investigation to deal with that particular element. So, Chairperson, broadly, these are just the examples which we felt as the audit office we need to reflect on insofar as the impact of the instrument is concerned. However, as indicated, in total, we do have about 47 MIs. There are other examples which I have not specifically reflected on, which can always be reflected on if there is a need to also discuss more deeply around the MI process. Please move to the next one. This then, Chair, is an analysis or an appreciation of what is it that we are calling upon, or what is our observation insofar as the metro leadership is concerned, looking at the executive leadership, executive authority leadership being the mayors, the municipal accounting officers, as well as the CFOs, because these are key role players in the context of the audit outcomes. Of course, their responsibilities are pretty much different, especially around the role of the mayor. There is the full appreciation in that regard, but in the context of the overall audit outcomes, these different role players need to work hand in hand insofar as the metro situations are concerned. So we've seen that at Mangaung, we had a vacancy insofar as the accounting officer is concerned. I think earlier on, I did reflect on the fact that when we audited for that particular year, there was about 5 accounting officers at Mangaung. That then obviously would have translated into the impact, not so positive insofar as the overall audit outcomes are concerned, as I reflected earlier on. CFO positions at Mangaung, we saw that there is a vacant position. So Mangaung is a big challenge insofar as the senior positions being filled is concerned. And of course, it sits of Tshwane. Although for a part of the year, the CFO was there, but our understanding is that before we actually tabled our general report, that position was vacant. Now, we also reflecting on the effectiveness of the council as well as the support structures. We've seen that in some councils, there's been instability. Seat of Joburg, seat of Tshwane, and Mangaung, that then affects the key decisions that needs to be taken by the councils, and so far as the adjustment budgets and the like. Mangaung was also placed under provincial intervention since 2020, January 2020, and however, as I indicated earlier on, the impact has not been fully realized. Municipal Public Accounts Committee, as well as the related disciplinary boards, is an area that we continue to raise as a matter that needs to be attended to. If the regular expenditure balances, which we have on the right, is anything to go by, because we are seeing that this figure continues to be high. We also reflected on the support provided by coordinating institutions. That will be on National Treasury. I think Alice earlier on reflected on the ecosystem where each and every role player essentially needs to come through. Some of the initiatives that we're reflecting on, Chair, would have only been implemented subsequent to year end. So it's only during this year's current audit process, which should be finalized the end of December, give or take, particularly for the metros, that will be in a position to reflect on whether or not these initiatives that we saw last year are yielding the right result. Consequence management, I think I reflected on that earlier on, and we continue to flag and raise the issue around the investigations that are taking longer to finalize. We continue to raise the issues around irregular expenditure being attended to, as well as the corrective action essentially being taken insofar as the irregular expenditure is concerned. I must also indicate, Chair, that our message is that when it comes to issues of irregular expenditure, it's important that the municipalities do not only take what we've identified as irregular expenditure, but they also conduct their own further verification through the impact processes, through the other committees of the council, to understand what would have led to those irregular expenditures, and then take the necessary corrective action. This is so that these investigations are also done with the view of appreciating the long-term impact that we are all looking for. So that then is our overall reflection in terms of the metro leadership, the impact that it has, as well as the role that needs to be played by the coordinating ministries. Please move to the next one. Chair, this then is the slide which my colleague Alice will cover. Just to then conclude from my side, Chair, in the metro space, we are seeing that across the key areas that we look at, There is work that needs to be done. I reflected on the financial reporting process, what needs to be done there. I reflected on the role of the consultants in the space, what needs to be done in that area. I also reflected on the internal control environment or the key matters that needs to be attended to deal with the less than desirable state of the financial reporting processes. I then reflected on the service delivery element, what it means insofar as the public participation processes are concerned. I then closed it off by saying, how are these public participation outputs received by the metro environment? Are they included in the audit of predetermined or the APRs that the municipalities present to us? At the point where they are not fully reflected, what does it mean? Is it budget conversations, or is it the lack of adequate discipline by the different metros? I've then reflected on the infrastructure value chain end-to-end. What are some of the observations, with the full appreciation that infrastructure is the backbone of service delivery? I then reflected on how infrastructure is being funded in the environment. In the context of the grant, I reflected on the underspending insofar as some of the grants are concerned. And then lastly, I then reflected on the compliance areas, the fact that the situation continues to be a challenge. Then as the audit office, what have we done insofar as our amended powers are concerned, the material irregularities that we see in the environment? I've also reflected on the positive impact that this particular instrument, the material irregularity, is having in the environment. I've also reflected on the elements or the areas that we look at as part of the material irregularities, not only being compliance, but also looking at some of the service delivery related areas, such as your wastewater treatment plants, as well as the landfill sites. And then in summation, Chair, these are the overall outcomes for the metros, which indicate that there are matters that needs to be attended to. And really the call to action, which Alice will talk to now, is about the appreciation of the role of each and every role player in the context of the ecosystem. Chairperson, I want to thank you a lot for the opportunity to engage with the committee. And thank you so much. Apologies for taking time, but thank you so much, Chair. I'll hand over to Alice. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to Ms. Sani. Chair, this was a long presentation with a lot of insights and information. Just to close it off to say, there is a number of call to action that we've highlighted. I'll run through it very quickly to say we need to support the professionalization of local government, making sure that positions are filled and that they're filled with the right skills. And then also, how do we reduce the reliance on consultants at local government level and make sure that there's adequate capacity at that level for coordinating institutions to continue to support local government, ensure that there's stability in councils. Also, how do we strengthen and continue to strengthen the impacts and the disciplinary boards in each and every municipality? Make sure that the recommendations by internal audit and audit committees are implemented. They do valuable work, and we just need to make sure that those recommendations are implemented and tracked. Continuous strengthening of the financial and performance management disciplines that Ms. Sani spoke to a lot. And then also, how do you ensure and strengthen the preventative controls in local government? There's also a call to action for the local government MECs to better their reporting to legislatures on the actions, plans and performance of local government. And then also for provincial legislatures to respond promptly to those reports and track the resolutions of the implementation thereof. Lastly, then also to adopt the National Treasury Consequence Management Framework, a very important document that was issued by National Treasury, for councils to continue to monitor the MI implementation and own this the MI process, so that no material irregularity should be left unattended. And then lastly, Chair, oversight to enhance accountability over local government spending. Chair, I end of my presentation with a quote from Sakani that says, by working together and leveraging of the strength of all the stakeholders, we can build resilient, responsive municipalities that deliver quality services and improve the life of our citizens. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Chair.
Thank you so much, Team AGs. Mr. Tolokulu, there was no need for you for apology. There's no need. I think this is something that we all are interested and excited to receive. One has to say thank you very much for the opportunity. I pity for those who couldn't make it, but also acknowledge and appreciate the good work. The report is very, very, very exciting, very informative, though stressful, but very empowering as well, because the national departments and provincials, they give services to people who are at the local level, and this is a very, very important phase of our sphere of government, and getting this information from you, AG. One is excited now that when you talk about the expenditure, you also compare it to the service they deliver, whether there was value for money. I see Mr. Pilot is here. You're welcome. Thank you. We have received your apology and we are happy that you are with us. You were able to connect while you were there. Can I now invite members? I see Honorable Ryder, Honorable Okamp, Honorable Mletsani. Who else? Honorable Karim, Jonas. Those are the 4 hands for now. Can I start with you, Honorable Ryder?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the presentations. I'm going to deal first with a message that came out yesterday. Chairperson, apologizing for the delay in scheduling this particular presentation for our committee. I certainly don't want the staff to take responsibility for that. I think that there's no ways that this committee is a victim of our programming or of our timetable. We direct this. So, I think this is very much a specific choice that was made in terms of prioritizing doing the bidding of the executive rather than receiving this presentation when we should have. And I think that, the fact that we could only muster 21 participants online today is an indication of did we miss the boat or didn't we? So staff members, the team, not your fault. I think it's a bad decision by the politicians managing the committee. And again, prioritizing doing the bidding of the executive, because on the 31st of May, we were pushing bills through instead of doing our oversight. Good. That's behind us. I'll now get on to the presentations of the day. And it was a lot to take on. I'm of the view personally that there's too much focus on the metros. And I would have preferred a much deeper dive into the smaller locals, particularly because first of all, the media focuses strongly on the metros, and I understand that's where the majority of the population lives. But I don't believe it's where the majority of service delivery problems necessarily are at their worst. And I think that there's much, more problems around other parts of the country that we could have gone into, where other people have not yet investigated. So the fact that we are 3 months late with this presentation means to me that, a lot of the information that you've presented today is in the public domain already, and has already attracted a lot of scrutiny, analysis, etc. So it would have been nice to focus, from my perspective, of course, on some of the smaller issues. And I mean, the fact is that we look at the 16 outstanding audits, the 3 that have still not even bothered to submit. And those are issues that I think that we as a committee should really be following up on, Chairperson, and calling people to account, because ultimately, again, we are the house as the NCOP that sits in the middle of the spheres of government, the 3 spheres of government, and that really is our responsibility. Now, I do believe, Chair, that the non-submission of financials should probably result in an immediate automatic intervention, whether it be in terms of section 139 or 154. There should be immediate response if somebody has not submitted their financials even several months after the deadline. I think that that needs to become a recommendation of this committee that I'd like to propose to come out of our report, is that we engage with COGTA and say to them that non-submission of financials needs to result in an intervention, because clearly if you can't submit your financials, you're either hiding something or you are incompetent in terms of the responsibilities that have been constitutionally given to you, and therefore you need to get assistance in order to do that. And I think that that would be the first recommendation I'd like to consider us taking. The next comment that came out of the presentation was that where there are multiple disclaimed audits, the municipality is doing harm to their community. It was quite a deep statement, and it says a huge amount in very few words. When a municipality is doing harm to their community, in other words, the exact opposite of what the Constitution envisions, what good governance means, etc. And so, perhaps we can also look at, if a municipality gets 2 disclaimed audit opinions in a row, perhaps that should also trigger automatic administrative intervention. And that's something else that I think that we need to discuss, perhaps with additional inputs or emphasis from the Auditor-General. And then perhaps the AG can answer me on this particular question. So far, it's mostly been comments. But here's a question: what are the consequences for a disclaimed audit opinion? Is there any consequence? And what should the consequences be? We continue to as Appropriations Committee, oversee the distribution of funds from the National Fiscus. And if there's a disclaimed audit opinion, we just continue to distribute them. Should we be considering deeper analysis into these? I do think that perhaps we need to start focusing a little bit more, Chairperson, on municipalities with disclaimed audit opinions, and especially where they have, been serial offenders and have a record of poor governance, you know, do we continue then to just dish out money as you know, without interrogating whether the taxpayers are getting any value for their money ultimately? The next one that I wanted to comment on, perhaps, Mrs. Miller made a comment that a clean audit doesn't necessarily mean good service delivery. You know, that's a bit of an indictment, because actually a clean audit includes two you know, broad aspects. The first is the financial side of the audit. The second is the achievement of planned targets. Now, your planned targets as a municipality come through a you know, preordained process, which is detailed in the Municipal Systems Act. And it says you've got to go through an IDP, and you've got to sit down and you identify key performance areas and then key performance indicators. Those are your planned targets. Now, if those planned targets are not talking to service delivery, what on earth are they talking to? So perhaps I can ask you, Ms. Miller, to just expand a little bit. You know, are we setting inappropriate targets at municipal level? Or are the targets being set specifically related to improving service delivery? And I quite accept the fact that different, you know, we can't have a one size fits all, because different municipalities are at very different levels of service delivery. And you know, as with, I don't know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or its, you know, subsequent improvements that have been done on it, you know, different municipalities will be at different levels in terms of where they are aiming and what kind of impact that, what kind of service delivery they need to achieve. But the reality is that those targets should be aimed at achieving or improving service delivery. And therefore, you know, I understand not everyone can live in a nice suburb with well-tarred road, with appropriate paving stones on the side, and, you know, lovely kept verges that are mowed by the municipality. Not everyone's going to be in that situation. But you know, basic service delivery, I think, is something that every municipality is supposed to be striving for, and therefore their targets should talk to that. So I'm not sure I agree with you on the fact that a clean audit is not necessarily equating to service delivery. And I think that we understand that service delivery means different things in different spaces. Chair, just yeah, there was a lot of information, and I think that a lot of it, as I say, has been well scrutinized in the public domain to date. There are some other issues that I think that we could probably still poke our noses into. But ultimately, I want to focus on the call to action that Mr. Bebekulu gave at the end. And say that was a generic call to action that wasn't necessarily focused at the NCOP. So that presentation that you gave was not focused on our role. In terms of the recommendations to the Select Committee on Appropriations in the National Council of Provinces, what would the AAG like us to look at? What would you like us to improve? You know, perhaps those first two recommendations that I made about disclaimers and non-submission is something that you would like us to act on. What other recommendations would you make in terms of, you know, the MFMA? Does the MFMA tick all of the boxes, or do you believe, you know, I mean, we're a legislative body as the NCOP, so you know, would you like to see changes to the MFMA? Would you like to kind of use this platform to raise that sort of thing? As the Appropriations Committee, would you like us to focus on, you know, more budget, for example? You pointed out Tshwane has been failing to upgrade the Rooiwal since 2010. Because of a lack of budget, and we found that out in the provincial week of Parliament recently, is the fact that they can't start the project because there's just not enough money in the budget for them to even get started. And if they were to do a multi-year project, it's like a 10-year project. That's what the budget allows in order to do that upgrade. So more budget, refocus budget. Do we need national department interventions into different specific issues? And I'm not talking only about Tshwane right now. I'm talking also about other municipalities, and a general comment. Do we need more national department interventions into sewage or water, etc., etc.? And do you think that there should be more or less direct conditional grants? We have seen a move towards indirect conditional grants from some of the national departments, because they feel that they are better placed to coordinate the spending and to be responsible and more accountable for some of these things. But we've also seen abject failures in terms of that, with the ring fencing of the regional bulk infrastructure grant to Midvaal, which is related in a 5-year delay in delivery of the Manhattan wastewater treatment works, is a specific example, because of the national department not doing their thing. So yeah, AG, what do you want us to do for you? Let's hear what calls to action you have for us as a committee. Thank you, Chair. I see you flashing your camera.
Thank you, Honorable Ryder. Honorable Ocamp, you next.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I'm back from France, and I'm glad that I was not the pilot of that plane. Otherwise, I would not have been back. So it's good to be back. Chairperson, firstly, I want to thank the representatives of the Auditor-General for the presentation that they gave us. I do, however, agree with Mr. Ryder that we are putting too much emphasis maybe on the metros, and we need to get a more thorough breakdown of what is happening at other local government spheres or municipalities. Chairperson, what we see here is really very disturbing in actual fact. If you look at figures like, for instance, on slide 8, that says that 75% of metros are lacking when it comes to review and monitor compliance. 87% of them are lacking when it comes to in-year and year-end reporting. 75% of them lacks when it comes to daily and monthly controls, and 75% of them lacks when it comes to proper record keeping. Now, that is with our metros. And those figures are all 75%. In other words, 3/4 of our metros and above do not have these systems in place. Now, if we do not have these systems in place, how do we think we are going to recover? How do we think we are going to get to a point in a few years' time from now where these record keepings are being done? We cannot have those people there that are lacking and expect that we're going to get a better result of it. These are very disturbing, especially when it comes to future projections of the improvement that we will get on auditor findings. Just to then also go to slide 15, slide 15 to me was very disturbing. 45.35 billion rands of irregular expenditure. Now you must go and look at what happened with that. Less than 1% of that was recovered, 4% was written off, and 96%, in other words, 43.5 billion of the 45 billion was not dealt with. Now, that is the problem. We are not dealing at metro level, and I think this trend will carry on through local municipality level as well. We are not dealing with irregular expenditure. Now, the reason for that, one must ask you, what is the reason for that? I firmly believe that there's a lack of political will on metro level, as well as on local municipal level, to deal with irregular expenditures. If you look at 96% of irregular expenditures not dealt with, surely there can't be any other answer to a lack of political will. People do not want to deal with this because they know that they or friends of theirs or colleagues of theirs might have their hands in the cookie jar. And that is the reason why they don't want to deal with this. So I know that the Auditor-General does not want to enter the playing field of political rhetoric and does not want to give political opinions. But I think if we look at what we are seeing, and if we look at some of the comments that were made by the Auditor-General, comments like accountability failed, senior managers failed, support and oversight by Parliament and provincial legislatures failed. We hear that the Cape Town succeeded because they've got zero tolerance as a strong tone on the top. But and I don't want to use Cape Town as an example, but I think that is what we need in all our metros and in all our municipalities, is we must have a zero tolerance and we must have a strong tone that support that on the top of all of our metros and municipalities. And we do not see that. So again, now we come back to what happened yesterday in the National Assembly, where cadre deployment again was protected by government and by the ANC and one other party. Isn't this the core of the problem? We are sitting with all these percentages that I gave you on slide 8, 75%, 87%, etc., of absolutely mismanagement, non-reporting. Isn't that due to cadre deployment, to having people in position that cannot do their job? Then we go further. When people can't do their jobs, they then appoint consultants to do those jobs. And as you have reported from the Auditor-General side, a lot of those consultants cannot do the job either. So again, that brings up the question, but weren't that just another cadre appointment that was made? A cadre that was appointed as a consultant to rip the taxpayer of billions of rands. So I don't expect the Auditor-General to give an opinion on that. What I would like to know is that whether the Auditor-General can tell us if they have got measures in place where they see those irregularities that are fraudulent or are totally irregular, whether those are reported to the authorities, whether those get investigated, and whether they get any feedback on that. There must be consequence management. We say this every year when we've got the Auditor-General here, as well as on numerous other platforms. And what I do not see is that there are consequences implemented on those people that are really mismanaging the finances of our metros as well as of our local municipalities. The other question that always comes up is the infrastructure grants. Now, 93% of that was spent. We have seen on numerous occasions at local government level, especially, where infrastructure grants are spent, but they are not spent on the infrastructure projects that they should have been spent on. Municipalities, in a lot of instances, use those monies to pay for normal month-to-month expenditures. So are these infrastructure grant spending of 93%, can the Auditor-General confirm whether that money was spent on the projects that it was supposed to? And if not, also can they tell us if there are any consequence management that will be implemented to make sure that the monies that are incorrectly spent on other projects instead of infrastructure grants will be recovered, or that there will be certain individuals or municipalities pointed out for that. Chairperson, it's a mouthful, but for me, the question is just, what does the Auditor-General suggest us doing in order to increase oversight, to increase consequence management, and also what can the Auditor-General do in order to assist the public to get people to book, to get criminal charges implemented against people that are really mismanaging the finances of their municipalities and metros in such a way that it is criminal from them. Thank you, Chairperson. I really appreciate the time. Keep well.
Thank you. Honorable Mletsani.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me apologize. I'm experiencing serious problem of a network, so I won't even attempt to open my camera. I really apologize for that. Let me appreciate the presentation by the AG's office. And good morning to colleagues and everyone who is part of this meeting. Mine, Chairperson, will be more of a comment than a question, because this is what I've observed based on the presentation done by the AG's office. I've realized that Mangaung has a serious challenge of lack of skills. And this means that the CFO and his finance department lack the skills, and nothing has been done for so many years to attract relevant people with skills or empower the finance department with skills to reduce the money that have been spent on the consultant, which Mangaung only have spent 4.6 million on the consultant. This is a clear evidence that Mangaung has a serious problem of leadership. Like the presenters, they've indicated in their presentation that this municipality had 5 acting city managers within a period of a year. And what hurts most is that people on the ground are the one that suffers most about service delivery. And the presenters, they have even indicated in their presentation again that only 13% average achievement they managed to achieve out of their target. In conclusion, Chairperson, I want to believe that the recommendations that were done by the Auditor-General's office to Mangaung municipality will help and assist to improve and stabilize this municipality. But really, it does reflect that there's a serious problem in this municipality. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Ntate Mletsane. Honorable Karim.
Thank you, Chairperson. Very quickly, firstly, Chairperson, my own view for what it's worth is that as many of our state institutions crumble, there are some that are resilient and perform extremely well. And I think the Auditor-General's office is one of them. It's been consistently good over many years, and it has Auditor-Generals who are extremely good, not least the current one. I think it's an excellent report. And I think it must be frustrating for them that they keep saying the same things about municipal performance, and there's very little improvement and even less consequence for those who are not performing, often willfully. I really think that, Chairperson, we must commend them. The issue, though, is as much as they can do, and they do very much of what they meant to do, the issues ultimately reside with us. It's about the politicians. It's at municipal level and in other spheres about governance, Chairperson. And we have been saying this, and they have increasingly acknowledged. Some years ago, they said, Chairperson, that they've noticed, we asked them, what is it that explains the better performance in some municipalities rather than others? And one of the things they said to us then, that was about 10 years ago, is where they found that the mayor and or some senior MMC person, executive committee person, was involved in effective oversight, then, and the EXCO as a whole, presumably, and the council, then you get better results. And I think that's true. Secondly, I agree that as the NCOP, And of course, the funds are dispersed from the national fiscus, at least for conditional grants and the equitable share. We have a major oversight role because of that. Ultimately, my view is that it's at the local level. It's the councillors, the council that must hold the mayor and exco to account. So you have to have strong oversight at the council level to attend to these issues. Then you've got to ensure that the provincial departments, both of COGTA and Treasury, and not just Treasury, are exercising effective oversight over the municipalities. Then crucially, the legislatures. So our role can't be separated from that. While we have a very crucial role, we shouldn't supplant the role of the councillors and provincial MPLs and so on. You see, some people will argue, yeah, we shouldn't intervene from the national level. You know, we're intruding on the powers and functions and the space of local government. But then on the other hand, they want to act sometimes as big brother, so to speak. And I use the word brother very deliberately. So, you know, Chairperson, I think I'm very empathetic, really, with the AG's office and the excellent staff they have. It must be very frustrating for them that they do all this excellent work and little comes of it, and they're powerless to do much. But one thing I'd like to ask is, they have had expanded powers to deal with failure to comply. You get hints of what they've been doing, but can they tell us how many examples they've had over the last financial year of taking action in terms of what is allowed to them in terms of the law? Then, since we focus so much on metros, I hear you, but you know, give us 3 lessons that you're drawing just for metros for now. I accept that the real problems are at local level, but given the decisive importance of the metros, the economic weight they carry, the social weight they carry, the cultural weight they carry, the number of people they represent, you know, I think maybe you can tell us 2 or 3 lessons of what makes for good performance at metro level at least. Then what happens in the South African cities network? You go there, presumably. We used to go there, I know, before. What happens? What do they say? Right? They don't have effective powers in an advisory body, but they do good work. Selga and the provincial Selgas, what do they say when you go and speak to them? I really think, Chairperson, that we have been dealing with these issues for over years. I don't know how many years, but at least 10, 12 years. And though they do so much, we do so little, Chairperson, at every level, starting at the local level, the councillors. And, you know, I don't know what to say. It's like, you know, it's deja vu. We've been through this before. There's been little progress. We need to think of new ways, Chairperson. I don't know what the answers are, but ultimately it resides with the political parties that govern. The choices we make, the failure to act against people who are errant. Somebody said, was it Willie? There is no political will to address this issue. Now, I don't care, Chairperson. I'm an MP. Okay, an ANC MP, but I'm an MP. And he's right. There's no political will. What else explains it, Chairperson? How many thousands and millions of times have these issues been brought here to the National Assembly committees, not just finance? I think they go to other committees. They go to COGTA committees and so on in the province and here. Well, what else explains it, Chairperson? And why? I mean, it's partly true, isn't it? Even not significantly true that people do not do it because it means tackling somebody or the other whom they either connected with personally or some political faction, or they feel embarrassed to expose people because you know how racialized it becomes. I'm not talking about the current members. I mean, you know, the average minority person, so to speak, says, oh yeah, you see, we know. It reinforces racial stereotypes that they've had anyway. It just reinforces it. But you see, Chairperson, the problem lies with us, politicians at all levels. And we have to be creative, Chairperson. We can't keep using the same methods. We have to put pressure on our political parties. And it's happening across political parties. Hey,
You know what? There are parties that claim we run things better. You look at the media, the same media they use against us. What does it show? Every now and then there are elected councillors and officials in municipalities where they've appointed. Look, in some, I don't want to enter this debate because it's very complex. In some or other form, there is cadre development in any democracy. The way it is done here is highly questionable. Okay, you look at the media reports around the time the DA took over the Metro, a year or 18 months later, Daily Maverick, even the newspapers were covering the number of turnovers of senior officials, and incidentally, many of them happened to be somehow or the other conveniently DA members, right? That isn't the issue. The issue is the way we as a majority party does it. And in all parties, chairperson, even if you're doing that, okay? The issue really is, why do you choose person A who meets the criteria of a rural person, a woman, an African, rather than person B who meets the same criteria and is probably better? That's the issue. So I think too much of hoo-ha is made about cadre deployment. The problem also, more fundamentally in many respects, and partly related to that, is the good, efficient, effective people. Don't want to serve in the public sector, chairperson. How many times have you and I and others met ministers who will tell you, hey, we're battling to get a CEO or a municipal manager, we targeted. I have been phoned because I've been around so long, about 4 or 5 times over the years to say, there's this person. We've approached them and said, look, consider applying and see what happens. Because, and that person is not, is a former student of mine. Let me give you one example. There's a former student of mine. He's not an activist, a cadre deployment image that people have. He's just damn good. I probably vote ANC. Well, until recently, 60+% people voted ANC. So, you know, it's understandable that civil servants will be at least 60% plus ANC. So, you know, I spoke to that guy. He moved on from the area in which I knew him studying, and he's done a degree that's really relevant. I have myself once or twice bumped into people, chairperson, in airports and wherever, and say, why don't you apply to be a DG or something and see what happens? They say, no. And then the private sector often pays more. So it's, you know, to reduce everything to the majority party's cadre deployment, I think, chairperson, is simplistic. You know what? The problems are too severe, chairperson. Never mind which party we come from. I've often agreed. Yesterday I was agreeing with everything that Dennis said, okay? Now I'm agreeing with Willie Outcome. Maybe they should also look at us and say, okay, we don't like the ANC. We don't like this chap. He's a communist and all that. It's fine. But look at the merits of what I'm saying. Don't reduce all the problems in our country. Where's the skill pool out there? And if it's there, it's going to the private sector, chairperson. And if it's not coming to us, it's because we, the ANC, have made the climate so toxic. Those are the issues we have to deal with. And tomorrow, if another party comes to power, you think they, not that they will for a very long time, hopefully never, but at least we will be changed and more traditional values and approach. But chairperson, do you think, let's say some party A took over, okay? Do you think the public service is going to change overnight? Which public servants are they going to deal with, or municipal officials? Do you think the culture of our country, its political aspect, not the poor people out there who've got no interest in all this nonsense that we're engaged in, they want delivery. Do you think it's going to change fundamentally? I don't accept that. But that's my view. I don't want a long debate about it. I'm just saying, chairperson, let's not reduce it to cadre. Finally, chairperson, I know I'm taking a lot of time, but this is a big issue because we don't get local government right, as the DA is saying, we are finished, okay? Like if we don't get education right, we are finished. So it's a governance issue. I feel we should apologize. Well, I want to apologize, right? To the Auditor-General's office for our failure, for my failure. Okay, let me talk about myself. I don't have a mandate from the study group. My failure to do more. I was chairing COCTA. I served another role in the executive as COCTA. You know what? I'm apologizing that we have failed you, really. You do such good work. And finally, chairperson, you know, Mr. Boletsane says that he cannot connect to us, okay? Because of his internet or network problems, right? Now, remember the ESCOM miraculously has come down for how long? I don't know. It's load shedding, chairperson. Do you think it's possible that what went through my mind, that the reason he's not switching on his video is because he's not wearing his red shirt today and he doesn't want to be exposed. And he's afraid they'll expel him summarily if he's not wearing red. Even if he's wearing pajamas,
he has to wear it, Chairperson. That's what I know about them. Thank you.
I'm in the streets.
That's what you say. Are you wearing red?
Thank you, honorable members. Earlier on, I saw the hand of TV Pillay. I think you have reconsidered your participation. Do you still want to speak now or you want to speak later? Can you indicate before I come with my TV Pillay, Chief Director, MFA from National Treasury?
Chair, can I speak later? There's some good points I think that's come through now, and it would be helpful if I could speak later. Thank you.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you. Honorable members, thank you very much. I could not stop anyone. Honorable Ryder, I was just reminding you, but actually I was not trying to send that message to say you must stop talking or cut your inputs, because I know the importance and the passionate that we all have as members of this committee on the subject that we have on the table. I want to believe that these municipalities that we're talking about, AG, they must be having the internal audit unit or direct with these units within the municipalities. I want to believe that if they are there and the financial statements will be considered, will be done, and they will be having the understanding of their financial cycle, and do what is necessary without really waiting for the end of the year or so on before doing something, and just let everything to, or leave everything to the AG to address those issues. I want to believe they do have, because I can only confirm with the province.
Alex, is it just me, or can't you hear the chairperson as well?
No, I think it's cold up there where she is. She's frozen.
No, I think
Myself, I can't hear.
yeah, it's on her side, colleagues. Babalo, can you try to assist in this regard?
Okay, thank you, members. Apologies. Let me check the chairperson. Or now she has logged out. Let me call her, and then I'll come.
I'm sure she'll rejoin as fast as she can. A phone call might distract her, but yeah, perhaps she should just turn her camera off when she rejoins.
My apologies, honorable members, about that. My sincere apologies. With the laptop, I was just kicked off. It's saying network connection failed. My sincere apologies. So that is my first question. Team AG on the issue of the performance. And my second question is the meaning of the lack of skill. I think other members have raised this thing, the lack of skills in the municipalities as a reason that is really contributing to what we see, the picture that is being painted when you present it. Does this really mean that there are no qualified people? I don't want to get into the debate of cadre deployment and stuff, because as always, I've been trying to avoid to politicize issues in this committee, but just be factual. Like Honorable Member Karim, he took responsibility as a member, but also as a deployed member from the ruling party. So we don't want to to shift the focus, but deal with these issues. I'm saying this because the president during the SONA has made a commitment and a calling, and also ourselves as we were engaging with SALGA in our forums in the NCOP, that the government in all spheres, they need to be professionalized, because you might have a good political leader or the politicians who are responsible for oversight and developing legislations and stuff. But at the end of the day, there are people who are fit for purpose, who must be fit for purpose, who are to implement. So do we have such people? Or in as far as your audit experience, AG, I'm not trying to say you must take the blame. It's not your responsibility. It's our responsibility. But if you share that information with us, it might also help as we go forward or hand over to the next committee. Are there people with relevant qualifications, or we don't have people who can do the work, who are not qualified? And this question takes me to the next question that I had. The issue of what is this? The issue of the consultants. This is something that I for one, has been having questions and fighting about it. And I think consultants are brought into the space for a certain purpose, and there should be value for money. If a consultant come into a space, do some work, and don't leave the skill, because there are people who are appointed there who are paid. So we expect them to work together so that they can pass the skill and not need them. Or are we having maybe the kind of consultants that we're appointing, they just come and keep the skill to themselves so that you can come and need them again, so that they can make money. So it's something that I'm concerned about, but it's not specifically to the AG only, but to all of us as committees. This approach of having consultants, we can't forever have consultants. I think consultants come in as an intervention strategy, and it should not be a permanent thing. while we have people who are getting salary to do the job. Maybe to ask a question to the AG to assist us as the committee, in addition to what other members has presented. You know, this issue of having existing warm bodies in the institution against consultant, to me, is double dipping, because you have budgeted for these home bodies, but you also going to need money for consultants. What can you recommend we can do, or as we do oversight over these institutions, we can do, or maybe have some changes? The issue of the latest implementation of the performance audit, as it will assist the enhancement of both the oversight work in Parliament as well as the policy making. What is the latest in as far as that? Honorable members and the AG, I have noted some issues on the slides, but I think I'm now going to experience a problem because I'm using a phone. I'm no more using the laptop because it has just kicked me out. You have spoken, or you have said something, even though the presentation is focusing on the metros, but you have said something about Emakazeni, which is a small municipality in Mpumalanga. Can you maybe please just go further on that, so that I have an interest there as a member who comes from Mpumalanga. What is it that you were saying? I missed that point, and my apologies to take you back on the matter. So those are the issues that I wanted to raise. Professionalization of the municipality, I mean the government at all levels. It's a very serious concern for me. And I'll leave, the others members have raised them, and those that I wanted to check on the slides, because now I'm disabled by my gadget here. I'll leave those. They're not that, it's not a train smash. We can live without those questions. I will now allow Mr. Pillay. Is it Mr. Pillay? And then the AG. Mr. Pillay, can you come in, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. Thank you, honorable members. I would, it's much appreciated, and I'd like to thank the colleagues from the Auditor-General for presenting. My role in the Treasury is on the MFMA and assisting to address some of the challenges that we found along the way. So I'm going to limit my comment just to some of the big issues that I think is worth noting for this committee and perhaps the future committee. Having noted all of the comments by the honorable members and some of the real reality checks that have come through this presentation and many of our National Treasury publications. So within that context, we've started a process from the National Treasury to engage many municipalities, including Salga and Koktas, over the time to understand and try and answer the question, what is broken and what do we need to fix? It's been a very deep searching question, because wherever people sit, they come with their different views on it, and it's very helpful. So we've been receiving comments on many aspects of the design of our current system, which is now for the MFMA side 20 years old, and beyond that going on 30 years. So we need to fix something that is drastically broken and not leave it and assume that things will fix itself. I think we perhaps need to take stock of that from that context. So the issues that the Auditor General has raised, and we have met with the Auditor General's office and the team to also brainstorm on some of these very challenging issues. Now, when we look at the landscape, we've created enough tools, enough measures, enough training opportunities, enough engagements, direct and through virtual and any form that you can find, to train municipal officials in a number of disciplines on the financial management side. So I'm aware of the budget training, the SCOA training, the accounting audit training, the financial preparation training, all of that. Now, so we've been putting those measures in place together as the Appropriation Committee. We have the financial management grant, and we want to redirect the conditions, zooming specifically into certain issues going forward, and not have a shotgun approach to try and fixing the financial management related challenges. So strategically, we need to ask ourselves the question, and with honorable committee members raising the right questions now, it's about time. So the question that we've been asking, have we addressed our legal framework? Yes, the forward-looking mindset at the time that has matched with what reality checks are. And I believe the answer is no from where I sit. And perhaps I've been too long in the Treasury, but it's something that we've worked through with that kind of experience and engagement, even also training counselors at some point and training other officials. So we need to get a sense of what do we need to amend in our pieces of legislation that will give specific powers to specific role players, and not have it in a way we currently have it. And I think some honorable members were part of the team that helped us draft all of this, where we have a sense that these are like some roles are with MECs for local government, some roles are with MECs for finance, some roles are with councils, some roles are with other players, and all of these issues tend to then create the cracks in the system, where then no one takes specific accountability for acting on certain issues. I'm saying it in this very stark way because we potentially need to fix these things in the correct way. So when we look at the roles and responsibilities of the legislature as an example, all the publications goes to the legislatures, the provincial, national legislature, and committees. But what powers does the legislatures have to then hold the executive in those municipalities or the municipal administration to account? And I'm being very provocative as well. Please mind me here. I would suggest zero, because we've been through the cycle for the last 15, 20 years, and nothing has changed dramatically at all. So what does that mean? You get the report, you have no powers then to action something and take it forward in a way that is mandatory on that municipality. So if you say as a committee, I want this councillor or this leadership in the executive to be removed and a new executive put in, fine, it's your recommendation. But is that implementable? I'm leaving it at your door, because we found there to be a hole in the legislature way that the recommendations are done and how that's being implemented. So I've come to Parliament a number of times previously where we had the Auditor-General, previous Auditor-General, may his soul rest in peace, also to try and engage on the matter. We had mayors coming to the table, yet nothing happened in those municipalities after the committee session. So perhaps something there needs to be looked at seriously. Then our role as, and I'm relating to where the dysfunctionalities potentially be. If we have financial management in the MFMA and we have financial management in the Systems Act and we have financial management in other pieces of legislation, it creates that challenge. So if we can get in and streamline that part to make it one responsible chain and hold that either MEC to account for it, and then there's taken no prisoners in this regard. So enforcement action must happen somewhere. So I would like to put that on the table. Then in terms of, and it's not party political at all, so it's just a clear observation as a professional to see what is not happening correctly. When we created the system of oversight in a municipality itself, have we given enough powers to the audit committee and the internal audit? Or have we given them that type of power that will require them to produce a report and then allow it to be shelved in file 13? So there's another question we've raised, and we said, let's try and strengthen this matter so somebody takes accountability for this issue. Some of the honorable members have raised it. There is a criteria in section 138 as a typical example. It says around financial statements, disclaimers, but that primary responsibility then rests with the provincial government as a first line oversight in our design of our system. If no action is taken there, it takes a long time for action to happen at the national level. By then, Rome has burnt down. So it's a very difficult thing to swallow when you see taxpayers' money and ratepayers' money going in this way. So one needs to fix these things, and we're there to help to fix it in making these proposals. And of course, there's many other aspects which I didn't want to get directly into, but I think I've made some very provocative points. On the performance management side, I would say it's zero. The enforcement at the municipal level, or from the executive to its officials, the administration from the MAM down, is really not happening. You go to a department and you find a very different scenario around performance management taking place. Appointment practices, you've picked on national publications, we picked on tools we developed, we picked on training we developed, we've picked on. The alignment of all of these should have to be put right. If we can do that, I believe we then can get to the point of ensuring consequences. Now, the AG picked on one consequence management. I want to close on this part. We have issued a consequence management accountability framework. It was delivered at the launch of the Presidential Local Government Summit in September 2022. We've issued the financial misconduct and DC board regulations. We first don't go with the regulation under the MFMA. We go with a guide. We go with a circular advising. We go with a training material. We go with a support as much as we can support until you take the water, the horse to water, and the horse fails to drink. Then what do? Then we try and put the regulation in place. So in doing that, we have this framework. We've been monitoring the UIFW reduction. We issued a strategy. We issued the tools. We've issued a register so that municipalities can complete and take it to their own councils. We've issued impact guides. We've trained impacts. It's tiring, to say the least, or the effort and energy. And then you get the non-response. You can check every metro in the country. They've been trained, not once, twice, or 3 times, those committees. And when you go back to say, but what has happened? Where is the monitoring? We're trying to give us information on what have you done. All investigations then are put somewhere in file 13. And our oversight doesn't allow us to get access to that documents. So this is another part we're going to strengthen in the MFMA if allowed to. Give the special audit services in the Treasury an establishment that it can then deal with these matters in such a way that we have other institutions that deal with it. But something must stop somewhere. It cannot be passed on from shoulder to shoulder to shoulder. And this seems to be what is the gap in our system. So, Honorable Chairperson, I've also expressed some of my frustrations through the process. I'm hoping that we can find solutions. We're here to find the solutions with you. Hopefully before you rise, we'll be able to bring some of these amendments through. But thank you very much for the chance to engage today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pillay. AG. Auditor-General's office.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. I'll also respond to these questions, and thank you also for Mr. Pillay. He stepped in to answer a number of questions as well, and I appreciate that. Maybe to the comments that was raised, I acknowledge that we didn't look at the whole local government outcomes, and we really focus on the metros today. I want to, however, say that the issues we pick up in the metros are transversal. It's the same issues that we pick up in across the country in different forms and formats. To the members, we also have our general report available, but also if there's deeper research that needs to be done, we have on our website a lot of schedules with detailed information per municipality. And I think that will also assist with that deeper understanding of what's the issues, what did we pick up. But it's data. And I think sometimes we the stories help us when we tell them. So I take that into account. Just on and let me link it to our amended powers, because there was a comment made by Honourable Ryder about the non-submission of financial statements as well as the multiple disclaimed municipalities. And then Honourable Karim also mentioned that we now have additional powers. So let me just tell you what we've done in this space. So in the local government space, up to early this year, up to the 15th of February, we've issued 268 material irregularities. Now, 44 of them is directly linked to causing harm to a public sector institution. So it's your disclaimers as well as where financial statements have not been submitted. So, and this is why we see that jump from 81% to 91% for submission of financial statements. It's because we've issued these material irregularities and we've seen a responsiveness. The 3 that haven't submitted is where there is multiple years, so they're catching up on the delays that they had. But there's also progress there. And I want to just indicate that we've raised these material irregularities in those cases. In the disclaimed municipalities, we've also raised the material irregularities because it's causing harm. And we are in a number of them, there's action that's been taken, but we are taking remedial action in a number of them as well, where the action that's been taken is not satisfactory. We also want to acknowledge that it's going to take time to fix. It's not a one-day exercise and then you're not in the disclaimer anymore. Some of those disciplines in that municipality and some of the information is really deep-rooted, and it's going to take a process to get to good financial disciplines. And it's going to take that political will that we talked about in the session that you talked about. Let me clarify that, as well as an intention to professionalize those municipalities. Maybe also just to note that we've identified, connected to these material irregularities, we've identified financial loss of 5.1 billion rand. Now, this is, if you look at irregular is has the opportunity or the possibility of just being a process that were not followed. With the material irregularity, we're now looking for impact. We now say money was spent and there was a financial loss for 5.1 billion rand. And this is also in our general report where we spell out why is that. So let me just indicate a few of these to you. Firstly, that payments were made for goods and services that were not received, unfair or uneconomical procurement processes where there was now losses. So you pay more than what you should have paid. We have issued the material irregularities for consultants where there was no value for money, Honourable Chair. And I think that's important because you made a very good comment to say, if there's no value for money, we're going to have to do something. And it worries us. So we did raise the material irregularity there as well. The revenue that's not built is also a loss to the state. And then where there's asset and investment losses, we've also seen that. Maybe also to indicate to the committee what has been, so what? Let me put it like that. So we've raised the material irregularity, what happened as a result of it. So up to that point in time in February this year, we have recovered 150 million rand in financial losses. Not we, but the accounting officers through this instrument. There was a 18.85 million rand loss prevented, so it's where we stop a contract, and then another 310 million rand of losses is in the process of being recovered. What we've also noted is that in some cases the internal controls have improved in that municipality, and that's what we want to drive. We want to drive corrective action with this measure that we have, with this tool that we have. So in 46% of the cases, we have seen an improvement in controls. So money is being prevented from being paid for services not delivered. And that's a win for us. In 58 cases, disciplinary action is now being taken where it hasn't been taken before we issued the material irregularity. And then in 14 cases, criminal and fraud investigations have been instituted. So we do raise fraud red flags, and in a number of cases we refer it. There was a case in Machabeng that we referred to the Hawks, and lately in July this year, they have made arrests on that case. So it's directly linked to the material irregularity that we've raised, and we referred this matter because there was fraud indicators there. And then also we had a contract that was stopped, and then outstanding financial statements. 15 financial statements were submitted as a result of this tool that we're now implementing. So these powers are quite powerful, if I can use it like that. And we continue to raise these on a continuous basis. So it's not limited to a cycle. So even when the cycle is over and we signed off the audit report, the material irregularity process continues. To that effect, also, there was a question about the grant payments. And even on the grant payments, so spending the money is one thing. But as you correctly said, was it for the intended purpose? So what we note is that, yes, it's in a majority of the cases, it is spent for that project, that dedicated project. However, we see delays on the project. We see the quality control failures on the project. Or where project money has been spent, but the product is not there. Now, in those cases, we have also started to raise the material irregularities. Maybe it's also to the Honourable Chair's point, when we look at performance. So when we look at these infrastructure projects, it's not just auditors like myself and Dumisani that goes out, because we can look at the reservoir and don't understand what is happening here. But we have specialists on our team. These are the performance auditors. We have a team of 15 engineers and a number of quantity surveyors that's permanently employed by the organization, that goes with us, and they then do the quality checks and make sure that money has been delivered and there's value for money. It's critically that every rand spent, when we have so little rands, for the intended purpose. So I think that's very important. Honourable Ryder, you also mentioned the clean audit. Maybe let me just make two comments then. What we've seen, and you correctly link it to say they do these performance plans, and but there's two issues. Is the performance plan properly done? And I think then the other one is, was the plan achieved? So when we look especially at clean audits, we noted that in the majority of cases, no, let me not say majority, in some of the cases, we've picked up, for instance, where water services was provided to formal settlements, and that was the target, but not to the informal settlements. And that's why we said, because the target says formal settlements and it was provided, they can still get a clean audit, it's true, but it's not necessarily service delivery, because there's a big portion of the citizen that was not positively affected by this target. So whose need has not been met. And we also understand that you're always going to be in this position where you need to prioritize what services gets delivered in which financial year. But what does the clean audit do is it gives us assurance that what they prioritized and what they indicate as achievement, whether they achieved or not achieved, is truthful and it can be relied upon, which is not the case in the other municipalities, where there's issues on the reliability of performance information, which makes that annual report that goes to council irrelevant, because they cannot rely on the information that's in it. Maybe just a comment on the, I don't want to touch, I think TV has talked about the lack of consequences. That is really something that needs to be attended to. On the issue about, Honourable Chair, you were talking to the professionalization and the capacity of internal audit committee. Maybe just to touch on that quickly, to say, in the majority of cases, there is an internal audit, there is an audit committee, but we still noted that in local government, only 24% of municipalities could submit credible financial statements. Only a quarter, notwithstanding the fact that they have internal audit and audit committee. So this also means that there's definitely a matter that we need to attend to, and that's why this professionalization is going to be so important, because if good quality information comes from the senior managers, it will make these structures also more relevant and efficient. And then just to your point, Honourable Chair, as well, on consultants, in the general report, you will note that 1.6 billion rand was spent on consultants. What we ask, what's the ask, is that one, we should encourage municipalities to reduce the reliance on consultants, and that will help and force the finance teams to upskill and to make sure that they do have the necessary competence and capabilities and capacity to do a proper set of financial statements. But there's also a responsibility on consultants. And this is a point I really want to underscore, that consultants need to make sure that at every municipality where they get paid to do a set of financials, they must do a transfer of skills. They must leave value behind, so that the municipality is in a better position next year than what they are in this year. So, and then lastly, Chair, your comment about Imakazeni, they received an adverse audit opinion, which means that the financial statements are wrong. In a disclaimer, we say we can't find the information, we don't know whether it's right or wrong. In an adverse audit opinion, we say this set of financial statement is incorrect, it's wrong. The information is there, but and they've been in this space for 4 years. And this is really why I'm calling on the for intervention at also not only at disclaimed municipalities, but also at the two municipalities with adverse opinions for a number of years. Chair, let me pause here. I know we're running out of time, but I just want to give Dumisani opportunity. Dumisani, if I've missed something that you just want to elevate, through you, Chair.
Okay, thank you so much, Alice, through you, Chairperson. I think the questions have been covered, Alice. I think the one which I want to just weigh in quickly is on the internal audit, specifically in the metro space. I think generally the units are there. What then becomes the issue would be the diligent manner in which those reports get to be processed further within the different municipalities. So in terms of that, I think even on the issue of consultants, I just wanted to also elevate the part that deals with the material irregularities and what is it that we would have done as the audit office to then deal with this particular issue. Thank you so much, Chair. I think Alice, you've covered all the questions well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the responses. I think to a larger extent, if not all questions that have been asked, you have answered. I just hope that you have not triggered more questions. And to Mr. Pillay also from National Treasury, thank you for the responses. Members, if we had enough time, I would have loved to allow a second bite because this is very important, but also it will also help us to help the 7th administration when we hand over. My parting question to both, actually to the Auditor-General's office, is to what extent has the new Public Audit Amendment Act assisted you in as far as addressing some of these issues that are being raised, issues like the unauthorized, irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditures. To what extent? Because I think that is a legislation that we were all excited about when it was introduced or it was enacted for you to have more powers. Just on that score, can you, AG, maybe, I feel it's important, honorable members, to raise this direct question to the AG. Ms. Miller, are you the one who's going to respond to this?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I did speak to this in terms of how this enhanced powers, and maybe I wasn't clear and I apologize for that the enhanced powers is directly linked to the material irregularities that we raised. It allows us now not to talk about irregular expenditure in the bigger format, but to say there is now a material irregularity, and it's very specific. It gets issued to the accounting officer to deal with, and then if they don't deal with it, we are able to take remedial action, and then also where they don't honor the remedial action, we can issue that certificate of debt. Maybe just to notify, to indicate that we are in the process now where a municipality has been issued with a notice of a potential certificate of debt to be issued. It's going through a process in terms of our enhanced powers, where representation has to be made to an independent body. The Irregular Materiality Assessment Committee. So just to indicate that we are taking these steps. At the time we did this report, Chair, as I said, we've raised 268 material irregularities, but just to indicate that we've had a number of them in a recommendation phase We've also had 4 municipalities in remedial action, and then we've also referred 3 municipalities for criminal investigation, further investigation by the public bodies. So it's definitely a tool, Honourable Chair, that we are very grateful for, because it strengthens our hand to say we are not hopeless anymore. When a municipality doesn't submit financials or they pay for something that there was no value for, we are able to raise these material irregularities, and we don't close them until a number of actions have taken. Money has been recovered, disciplinary action has been taken, and the internal control environment has been strengthened. I trust that helps. Thank you, Chair.
It does help. Thank you very much, Team AG, National Treasury, honorable members. Thanks for the inputs, the questions that you have put to the AG and National Treasury. I think I want to believe that this has helped us understand more or better on what is happening, and sharpen our thinking towards the oversight of these municipalities. I really want to appreciate this opportunity that at the end of the day, we were able to meet with the AG. We would have loved to meet with the AG earlier. I think this is what Honorable Ryder was speaking about, and we are working as a team in this committee, both the chair and the whip and the secretariat, or members or officials in the committee. So we consult each other, we talk to each other, we plan together and take decisions and advices. So we are really taking responsibility and think that it's not all lost. It's not a train smash that we could not meet you earlier, but still relevant. And this does not suggest, or the process does not suggest that dark or blue, this needs to be done by us and not the next people. If we couldn't do it during our term now, we will recommend to the next committee in the next term of office to continue. We just have to be sharp on that and see what we recommend, and recommend what is going to benefit the citizens at the ground level. Thank you so much, honorable members. Thank you, the presenters. I will now like to release with those words the AG's office and the National Treasury team, so that we can deal with in-house matters. One matter outstanding that we just need to deal with as the committee.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, committee. Bye-bye.
Oh, thank you very much. Lubabalo?
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay, we are still fine as members. We can continue with the minutes, né?
Yes, Chairperson, we have 6 members on the platform, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The minutes are on the screen, honorable members. We are on the first page. Page 2. We are now on page 3. No corrections there. Page 4. Page 5. The next page 6. Page 7. Page 8, honorable members, the last page. Okay. We didn't receive any amendment corrections, and members to now, they have not seen anything that needs to be changed. Can I call for a mover?
Yes, it's
for
Eunice. Thank you.
adoption?
Eunice moves. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Karim. A seconder. Can I call for a seconder for the adoption of the minutes as a true reflection of the...
Second, Chair.
Thank you. Who was that? Honorable Ryder.
Yes, it was.
Thank you, Honorable Ryder. Honorable members, thank you very much. And as I close the meeting, next week, we have a meeting that has been scheduled. I think you have seen in our program, and I will unfortunately be out of the country. And I'm going to request the whip, Honorable Moss, to take the responsibility while I'm out. I think they will be back by then as the whips. If there's anything else, I will request the chair of finance to do it. But the first person that I want to request is Honorable Linda Moss to chair the committee. So I will not be available for next week. With those parting words, honorable members, thank you very much. Please take care. And we have seen the new haircut. And there's an addition that Honorable Ryder has identified on the pilot, but he has clarified it. Thank you very much, honorable members. Keep well.
Safe trip, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank
Keep
you.
well. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.